doesn't get up, it doesn't matter because it's a zombie. It doesn't have our human rationale for making choices. And so the way that every single zombie just acted totally independently, it wasn't some kind of hive mind all connected. They're working towards some great purpose. They end up crawling up this wall on top of each other because every single individual zombie just wants to get up. And so it doesn't care what's below it or above it or about itself. It is just a singular actor. And that's
Yeah.
a terrifying, like the loss of humanity is what a lot of monster movies are about. And that is the thing I was thinking about out of this particular zombie movie, the way that it showed it.
We're back for the final episode of Cole's 31 Days of Halloween, and we hope you enjoy. It's Hallow's Eve. Are you ready to finish your horror movie marathon?
I am. Today is Hallow's Eve.
You're right. People need scary movies to watch. Hallow's Eve is Halloween. So it's Hallow's Eve.
Yeah. All Hallows Day, November the 1st. 4 days away from the 5th of November that we remember.
As far as Halloween goes, do you still celebrate with dressing up? I mean, now you have a kid.
Yeah, he's got a cute little Buzz Lightyear costume. The purple head thing that goes over really squishes out his cheeks. Cutest. I mean, I'm an unbiased observer. He is the cutest kid that has all time ever been. So
Rightfully so. Rightfully
Yeah.
so. Trick or treating, all the rest of it. Can we just talk for 2 seconds about Halloween hate in the United States?
who's doing it? Let me know.
The crazy Christians.
Oh, so it's still just the 80s and it's Satanic Panic?
Satanic Panic is back
Okay,
on TikTok, and I just don't understand. I've been fed it, and I was like, algorithm man, whoever you are, sending me videos from China. This is not right. This is not
Is this
what
the
I
Gen
want.
Zers that are anti-sex too?
Yeah. And you just
No.
have to wonder, they're like, we're
Forget
not
'em.
into Halloween, but we are into dressing up. I'm like, that is Halloween. Most of us are not
Oh,
doing,
yeah. The
Satan
mom
worship.
the very perfect pretty white mom influencers that are, we don't agree with the premise of Halloween, but we're still going to dress up on the 31st of October as what and get free candy from No, that's all Halloween is, man.
I would just love for influencers to do the same thing and mock them for Christmas and be like, I don't
We're
accept the
taking the
Christian
true
version
meaning
or the
out of
pagan.
Christmas. Yeah, uh-huh.
Which meaning? Which meaning? Okay, so Halloween, what is your Halloween night going to look like? Are you guys going to trick or treating for a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
so now
hanging
that I'm
out?
married, I have a child, we dress up as a family. We go to the in-laws. They have a cul-de-sac, so we go around to some of their neighbors.
Wonderful.
We get the free candy. I was actually talking to my wife about this. Halloween is by far my favorite holiday, unsurprisingly, from what we've been talking about for now 31 days.
Yep.
But I'm not big on candy. I don't really eat sweets or dessert as a person. It's not like an I'm better than you and I'm healthier than you because I eat plenty of trash otherwise. Candy
Okay.
doesn't do it for me. I'm more salty than sweet. And also, I've never had the imagination to dress up very well myself either. I don't get a passion out of dressing up, going to parties. I didn't do that when I was single. I don't steal my kids' candy because I don't like the candy anyway. And yet Halloween still is absolutely my favorite. I love the vibes around it. I love seeing other people's costumes. When I was in college, Halloween is the greatest day on campus because
Yeah.
you get to play a day-long game of guess the reference while all of these people are dressed up as ridiculous things. And I love that part.
I wish we'd do it more often. You're right. There should be like Historical Persons Day and, just kind of walk around and be like, is that Hamilton?
Is
Is it
that
George
Bach or is
Washington?
it Beethoven?
See, there you go. Well, let's wrap up. I mean, last week we left on a cliffhanger of sorts. You did not know what you were going to watch next.
Right.
I'm excited to hear what you watched and then what you're watching tonight and tomorrow to wrap up this wonderful month of horror movies.
Yeah, this is the final week of doing it. And the last Wednesday night, I watched The Last House on the Left. This is
Okay.
this is a this is a serious one. After 7 days of Alien and we talked about only two of the aliens should really count as horror. I wanted to get to a horror movie. I felt like I was leaving my roots a little bit, and nothing gets you into it like one of the old video nasties. So if you're ever looking for recommendations, and that's what we're doing for 31 times on a podcast right now too, there's plenty of lists out there. There's AFI's 100 Thrills, right? AFI has done many 100 lists. So the Halloween adjacent one would be Thrills. Bravo had a TV show that ran years and years ago that they've done a couple additions to it. You can find the whole thing on YouTube. That's 100 scariest movie moments, a little countdown where
Yeah.
it's basically 100 scary-ish movies. Another place to go is a couple of the old censored lists because the British put out in the 1960s, 70s ish, probably 70s into the 80s, what they called the video nasties, where they banned a certain clump of movies. It was originally 39, and then they added a little bit more to it of movies that were deemed just too reprobate for what we're doing. So, you know, I find it fun, just as fun to go through like the AFI's top 100 movies ever. Or every Oscar winner ever. It's also fun to just check off, every movie that the British government thought was too terrible to be a true movie. And The
It's a
Last
good
House on the
starting
Left is one
point.
of those.
Now,
Yeah,
this is the
Cannibal Holocaust
70s?
belongs in there. Actually, the
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, viewed even by critics and educated people as one of the great horror movies of all time. It was on the video nasties, and we were censoring and telling people not to watch this. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, everyone should watch. It's great.
So it almost just makes it more desirable to watch these movies.
When you ban something, yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that's natural. Directed by Wes Craven, who would go on to give us a couple of the fixtures of our Halloween costumes when people were dressed up as Freddy or as the Scream Ghostface from the Scream movies. We wouldn't have that Wes Craven if it wasn't for his start cutting his teeth on horror in Last House on the Left.
Now, for those listening, this is the 1972 version, right? Do
Yes.
you like the 2009 version?
Look, I'm pretty up there. I did not
Yeah.
know there was a 2009 version. I have not seen it.
Oh,
I've seen a
for
lot of
the
remakes, but
best.
through the 2000, and we're going to actually get to an interesting remake
Yeah.
in this week. So that's a nice little segue, but I haven't, have you?
Fantastic. I did. So this came out 2009, so right before graduating high school,
Mhm.
at my friend's house. If he's listening, Vincent, sorry, this is coming out. Me and him, his sister, her friend, were all watching together, middle of the day on a Saturday, dark basement. It's scary, but there's like a really extended rape scene.
Yeah, that
Very,
fits.
very, I mean, it shows a lot. It's just a lot of grunting. It takes a while, or maybe at least in my head, it takes a long time. And I remember it so well because as we're watching this movie and this rape scene's going on, halfway through the scene, I turn to look and make sure everyone's still watching or not watching. Then I realize my friend's dad is 5 feet behind the couch, just watching silently,
Mm.
arms crossed, not saying a thing, just staring. It was just a lot. Forever scarred me, and that was the scariest part of the movie. I remember
Yeah.
it being scary, but that would to me was worse than everything else I saw.
As I watched 31 movies in 31 days, it is very important to understand which movies you watch alone on a laptop in your bed, which
Yeah.
movies you watch when you go to the Halloween parties, which movies you watch with children under 13, and understand. The Last House on the Left is the former of that. This is you can dig it, but just know that stuff like that is coming. That's again, it comes from the video nasties list. Don't
Yeah.
do this up on a party with a bunch of people whose favorite movie is The Dark Knight and Princess Bride. Like this is a little bit of a different beast.
Okay, so tell us a little about your viewing this time. Has it changed at all, and why you like this movie?
I mean, it's more of an education. It's more of like a piece of horror context and literature to me.
Yeah.
You see, again, it's so broken down, and so I came at it this time trying to appreciate some of the filmmaking craft, to see the blocking even in what is like a really degraded feeling and looking movie. And I still saw some. I still saw, what Wes Craven is gonna bring us eventually beyond the depravity. But the reason it exists is to test what people are willing to sit down and watch. And I was willing to sit down and watch it.
That's a pretty good test. I guess before we move on, are you going to watch the 2009 one now that you've seen 72 again?
I feel like I need to. Maybe it doesn't make the Halloween list next year, but maybe just like in December, once I've had a little bit of a detox from my marathon.
After a
We'll
little
queue it up.
palate cleanser. All right,
Yeah.
all right.
Mhm.
I like that. Let's move on to the next movie. What was your next flick?
So you talk about in the 2000s us remaking every single horror movie from the 60s and 70s, or
Yeah.
yeah, mostly. The House of Wax got a little bit of a remake, and it was pretty good, man.
Re
2005, Jared Padalecki,
okay.
possibly pre-Supernatural, early Supernatural, just before he would be in the Friday the 13th remake, because Halloween with Rob Zombie, which I've mentioned already in this list, then Friday the 13th, then Nightmare on Elm Street, our big three, all got remakes in the 2000s. And then we were remaking all kinds of other just like 60s stuff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre also remake, and Last House on the Left apparently got a remake. House of Wax is just this random one-off 60s thing, doesn't have any franchise or cultural importance to it, but it got the remake in the 2000s. Prom Night, so many of them. We
Yeah.
were this is what the 2000s, and so it's surprising that honestly I came out as the horror fan that I am when my teenage prime theater going years were just full of pretty bad knockoffs of the originals. I think I might argue the House of Wax belongs at the top end of these remakes when it comes
Okay.
to it's good that we remade it. They had something slightly different to say from the original, if what I can remember from the original is accurate. It's old Vincent Price. And it is also scary. Like they tell a new story and they hit the beats, and it's an interesting concept in the first place. So, there's a house of wax, and the crazy curator of it is murdering people and then, surrounding their skulls in wax to build his wax museum of once alive people. That's
Oof.
a great horror concept.
Yeah. For everyone who wants to know the cast, Paris Hilton, Chad Michael Murray. I
This
mean,
is when Paris Hilton was trying to be more than just famous for being famous. She started showing up in a couple easy movies. This is one of them.
okay, on that note, just a stupid fun fact. Went to a live podcast taping for a podcast I love, the Town, couple
Oh
or
yeah,
last week at the Palladium next door in Hollywood. I was like, what are all these people lined up in pink? It was Paris Hilton doing a concert of Paris Hilton music, and it was jam packed. I didn't know Paris Hilton could do this still. So
she's
good
still
to know.
famous.
Her acting didn't pan out, but you know what? She
No,
can still fill a medium-sized auditorium.
and nothing against Paris Hilton's acting, but she is in this 2000s horror movie to be sexy.
Yeah.
Often horror movies give you, your obligatory nudity scene. And for the record, Paris Hilton not actually naked in this movie. So
Wow.
in case in case that's what sold you here is that that's not what you get. It's
Not
just
what you're gonna get.
normal amounts of Paris Hilton being sexy.
Can we sidebar for 2 seconds about ratings, reviews? We both know how we feel about Rotten Tomatoes and the rest of it. When you
We
see
can
a
make it
horror
clear. It's been a
movie,
while since the two of us have been on a podcast.
this
So
is
for
true.
the record, Rotten Tomatoes is dumb. Let's go.
Rotten Tomatoes is dumb. When you see reviews for a horror movie, what numbers are you looking for? Do you like seeing extremes on the band? Do you like seeing middle of the road? Do you look at who's reviewed it and see what they say and you're like,
Yeah.
ah, I
You,
don't like you, so there we go.
you find because the internet is full of people where there is a low barrier of entry and anyone can have a podcast. Exhibit A,
Right
what's up?
here.
So you find some people whose general opinions you agree with, and find the horror niche people. If you're a big sci-fi guy, find the interviewers and the podcasters and just the guy in front of a YouTube camera that wants to talk about every single sci-fi movie. And if you respect his opinion, then go to that one, not your general speaking Academy voting or Critics' Choice voting audience that this movie, they're forced to watch it and then they come out
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, I had to sit here for 2 hours and it wasn't my cup of tea." So, guys, I mean, the Angry Video Game Nerd has lists of his top, movies in the Halloween franchise or whatever, because he also did that for a while. Just find some random guy on YouTube whose horror opinions you agree with, or me, and then listen to what
True.
they have to say and take your recommendations there.
That's a good note because I mean, when you Google House of Wax, because I wanted to see the cast and stuff like that, you see on the side Rotten Tomatoes 28%, IMDb 5.5 out of 10,
Mm,
Letterboxd 2.9 out of 5,
mm.
Google users 85% like this movie. There's just a lot playing there. And I know, at least for me, when it comes to like art house flicks or old movies, I'll always click in and see like who's reviewing what. I find it the same when, and this is going to sound how it sounds, when I go to look at like Mexican restaurants or Indian
Yeah.
restaurants or, Japanese food, Korean, looking for the best pho, if it's the blandest whites giving it 5 stars and anyone with a little bit of melanin or culture saying not good, I know
Mhm.
what not to go to. I'm like, I
Mhm.
know, I understand the experience. I
See, but
just
I
wondered,
mean, that's a wonderful comparison because
yeah,
when I'm looking for Indian food or Thai food or anything that has any amount of spice, I need the whitest white person from Great Britain who avoids pepper at all costs to tell me what his scale is from 1 to
yes.
10. And if it crosses 5 for him, then I'm getting a little sweaty and scared. So, know what you like and then follow that. Nothing wrong with it.
We all have to know our litmus test. That's what's important here. House
But
of Wax
House of Wax.
2005.
I think a very valid remake in a world and a time where we were getting a lot of really dumb ones and a good twist at the end. This does the thing that a lot of horror movies try to do that is not the best, where they have a twist towards the end that it's building to, and then right before the credits they try to throw another twist at you, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Here it does not. They do try to give you one last um and it's not great. The plot, the museum curators that are doing this are actually twin brothers. They were formerly conjoined twins. One of them is severely scarred, and
Wow.
that's why he covers himself with wax to try to hide that. And one of the brothers is very crazy and a murderous rampage kind of thing. And then at the very, very end, we find out, oh, there was a third brother, bah, 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 and it didn't matter at all. But like
Okay.
before 2 seconds before the end of this movie, the twist of what these brothers are doing and their motivation, and then the action and the horror of the very final scene while the whole house of wax is melting down. Pretty good.
Okay. So maybe a little minor biff, but still a good twist.
Yeah.
Let's move on to October 25th. Do you go back in time or forward?
Forward. I'm willing to bet you've seen this one. Not many on
Ooh.
this list can we really go back and forth on, but where are you at on Brad Pitt's World War Z?
I was just talking about this movie with some coworkers. We'd like a Friday catch up every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I love World War Z. I love the book more, and I
I
think that
was
the movie is
I was gonna
completely
ask. That normally
separated,
colors it.
but I still love both. I don't think I'm as much of a hater as I wanted to be after reading the book.
I still have yet to read the book. I
Rather, listen to the book.
Okay.
Audible, listen to the book. The voice talents are just so insane. I'm going to have to pull them up because you're going to be like, wait a sec, what? Carl Reiner, Rob Reiner, Martin Scorsese,
Wow.
Mark Hamill, John Turturro, Max Brooks, Alan Alda
Mm-hmm.
of, MASH fame, Paul Sorvino, Denise Crosby, Dean Edwards, F. Murray Abraham. We know Spielberg loves that guy. Maz Jobrani, if you like comedy, kind of fun. Alfred Molina. So we have
He's gonna crop up in a movie that I'm gonna talk about in a second.
fantastic Cal Penn, Simon Pegg. Anyways, humongous list. You have to listen to the audiobook if you want a fun time
If
to
you're not,
stay.
so the reason why this cast list seems so massive is because the concept of the book World War Z is they're just little vignettes and diary entries essentially from how the world is reacting in all these many different places to a zombie outbreak. It's the mid 2000s or late early 2010s. It's a zombie movie. And World War Z, the movie, gives us this through line of Brad Pitt, world trotting guy that's working alongside his buddies at the UN to drag everyone together. And then we see, through him. But again, so I've not read the book, but that was my impression from people criticizing it is that what the book does
Yeah.
so well is it drops us in and it just makes it seem so real. And then the movie takes a more glossy, that early 2010s action slant on what should be just scary zombies.
The movie was definitely much more plot based. I think if they were going to do it like the book, and I just hope somebody buys the rights or just talks to somebody and says, listen, we're sitting on a gold mine. Please just let us do this. It needs to be a limited series.
Yes.
Like Last of Us's separate episodes, if each one was a separate episode in media ray, we're here, it already happened, move on, then it would be great. But I think honestly, I can't hate the movie too much because I really enjoy it. I don't know how you felt, but
Oh yeah, I thought it was great. I'm a big zombie guy.
Yeah.
Train to Busan is one of my favorite movies, period, but also zombie movies and horror movies of all time. And it's got a little bit of this where we have some faster zombies. It leans a little bit more on the action than the horror, but we still get legitimate scares where from, the creatures and our heroes being put into peril. This along with Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead really started your fast zombie craze. And the one
Yeah.
scene, and I watched this alongside my wife, and she was doing her crocheting while we did it. And I kind of was smacking her arm saying, hey, this is the one. If people know one scene from World War Z, zombies
Yep.
are climbing on top of each other trying to get over the wall. This is it.
That helicopter from the ads and everything else, by the time you saw it in theaters, or rather for us saw it on DVD, it was just that good. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole idea of them, yeah, crawling over each other. CGI'd hit a good enough point at that point for me of like, oh no, it looks believable enough without being photorealistic at all times. But yeah, good, great action. A lot of locales they go
Mm-hmm.
to, but it's fun.
And I just, I have a pretty low bar for zombie movies. I just want to think one new thing when I watch a new zombie movie. And for this, it wasn't, oh, fast zombies, fast. It was zombies, when you take away our humanity, are just, they have no disregard for their bodies in this movie. They are truly just creatures being thrown at anything. So when you or I see something that we are chasing and it is 2 stories down because we're on top of a roof, we would take the stairs and lose a lot of time. A zombie just jumps off the roof to take the fastest track from point A to point B. And if it doesn't get up, it doesn't matter because it's a zombie. It doesn't have our human rationale for making choices. And so the way that every single zombie just acted totally independently, it wasn't some kind of hive mind, all connected, they're working towards some great purpose. They end up crawling up this wall on top of each other because every single individual zombie just wants to get up. And so it doesn't care what's below it or above it or about itself. It is just a singular actor. And that's a
Yeah.
terrifying, like the loss of humanity is what a lot of monster movies are about. And that is the thing I was thinking about out of this particular zombie movie, the way that it showed it.
How do you feel like this movie is connected to or differs from I Am Legend? Because I feel like when it came out, some people were like, oh, it's just I Am Legend on a bigger scale or something else.
Both based on books also, because I Am Legend is, so I watched the first, it was I think Charlton Heston in Last Man on Earth. So that's what I Am Legend takes its inspiration from. And technically those predate movie zombies, and they shared more in common with vampires at the time than
Yeah.
zombies. But by the time we got to I Am Legend, they were more zombie-ish. It was in this era where we were trying to do something new with zombies every time. I prefer World War Z. I prefer the just pure zombification and also talking about what humanity is doing. Whereas I Am Legend is more about the Will Smith of it, right? What does
Hmm.
one man do in an apocalypse that just so happens to have zombies versus in World War Z, you never lose track of the zombies. They are central to everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it has even more of what the world and people interacting with each other are doing about them than I Am Legend even, but World War Z is about the zombies.
Which I think makes it fun. It's a little less, yeah, interior, quiet
That's true too.
psychology. It's much more, hey, Brad Pitt, hop in a helicopter. Hey, Brad Pitt, here come the zombies again.
Shoot
But
the zombies.
shoot the zombies, and it works. World War Z, streaming on Paramount for anyone who wants to watch it.
It was
Paramount
on
Plus.
Netflix up until I think like this week. And now you're
Those
gonna have to find some
bastards.
because, movies jump around.
Paramount Plus pulled the carpet out from under you just so that you could sign up for this week.
Next
October
movie,
26th.
Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were Rabbit.
Oh, baby. All right, claymation. Let's go.
Aardman animation. They're so good. And there's a new Wallace and Gromit out in 2024. So it's culturally
We
relevant.
love it. We love it.
Takes our where I watched the original Wolfman earlier on, takes this story as old as time and puts it in animation and makes it about rabbits stealing vegetables in this little town's preparation for the who has the biggest vegetable off that they have every year. A little bit of romance, but unfortunately, our hero, who's in charge of capturing all the rabbits and keeping them away, tries to get a little bit ahead of his skis in his technology, ends up merging his mind with a rabbit's mind and turning himself into the accursed were-rabbit. And how is his dog companion Gromit going to save the day at the end?
Did you grow up watching Wallace and Gromit?
Not particularly. I
Really?
loved
Okay.
Chicken Run as a little kid. I didn't know there was any
Yeah.
kind of Aardman extended universe to get into until I was firmly an adult.
I remember we would get babysat by my friend's mom from time to time, whatever. Or a lot of my friends' parents loved showing us Wallace and Gromit. So we watched a bunch of it growing up. But I will say it was always the super granola, weird hippie people. And so in my mind, I've always just associated Wallace and Gromit with like 60s peace-loving hippies, whatever.
I
It was,
associate it with just the British because also, I mean, Aardman Animation is British, I
it is
assume.
British.
The
Yeah.
only people that have preached the glories of Wallace and Gromit to me, who I've known, have been the international travelers of my friend group.
International travels and Anglophiles. Yeah, when I
Uh,
went over to England, this is not just like for hippies. This is mainstream. This is
this is
their
just their
thing.
SpongeBob. Like
This
this
is their
is,
SpongeBob. Yeah. So it definitely like didn't knock it down in my head, but it made it less weird. It's very normal. This is a good one. I saw it in theaters, 2005. Big fan. Big fan of Wallace and Gromit.
and it really is hilarious. I can't say enough for whenever you're looking. And us Americans, and if you don't have a friend who's the granola or whatever it is, whoever's
Yeah.
introducing Wallace and Gromit to anyone, just random people, you don't know enough about Wallace and Gromit, and we are rewatching some pretty terrible Halloween specials too many times when Wallace and Gromit is sitting right here for you.
And it's on Netflix, right?
I watched it on Netflix. It was on Netflix 5 days ago at least.
Netflix, yeah, it still shows on Netflix, or you can rent it elsewhere if you don't have a Netflix account. So Wallace and Gromit, October 26th. Let's move one day forward, 27th.
So on the morning of the 27th, I actually ended up watching Hotel Transylvania and half of the second Hotel Transylvania on Peacock
Oh,
with my son,
okay.
who is 1 year old. We turn on some kind of cartoon in the middle of the day if I'm working from home or whatever, usually. That wasn't the plan. The plan was what my wife and I watched after we put the baby to bed afterwards, and that was to watch the adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's novel, Rebecca,
Re
directed by Alfred Hitchcock in his first American Hollywood production, produced by David O. Selznick, won Academy Awards. This is a classic and a thriller in the original sense of the word.
Now, this is 1940.
The year after O. Selznick changes the movie landscape with Gone with the Wind, he's
Wow.
immediately back again with Rebecca.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier, Joan Fontaine, George Sanders. Okay. Won two Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us
Including
about
Best Picture,
Rebecca.
I believe.
Okay. Okay. I'll
So
double check that. Yes, it did
Joan
win Best Picture.
Fontaine is this just mild mannered, doesn't speak up, plain dressed lady that is on vacation, and handsome Laurence Olivier
Mhm.
comes up to her. She catches his eye. They go on a whirlwind romance, and he brings her back to Mandalay, his mansion. It turns out he's just like absolutely independently wealthy. He has this whole mansion. They get married after like 3 days hanging out in Monte Carlo, and then she goes back home with him, and she becomes this very off put that where she doesn't feel like she belongs because she has been brought into a world that is new to her. And she is our main character, the character that Joan Fontaine plays. The movie is called Rebecca. Her name is not Rebecca, and we never find out in either the novel or this movie what her name is. She is just the new Mrs. De Winter, the new Mrs. Laurence Olivier. It is Laurence
Interesting.
Olivier's previous wife whose name is Rebecca, and it is the not literal but psychological ghost of Rebecca presiding still over this large mansion house and in his mind that truly haunts their relationship and what goes forward.
That sounds terrifying.
It sounds amazing. I didn't think it was amazing. There are a lot of themes going on in this that we can talk about, and just the way that we played with women's horror, especially. I love that it was written. It was based on a book that was written by a woman, and you can tell she was putting a lot of this into it. Where women, especially at the time, where you didn't have a life or a world outside of your home, especially if you had one of those kind of controlling husbands,
Yeah.
when your home becomes unfamiliar to you, on top of that, you are trapped and have nothing to go to. And so you have the housekeepers that keep reminding her, oh, Rebecca was so much better than you at this, and Rebecca wouldn't
Ooh.
have done it that way. And now she can't be her, so she loses her identity. A woman and a character whose name we never find out is struggling with her identity in this entire picture because Rebecca is the omnipresent force. The twist towards the end is that Laurence Olivier never even liked Rebecca. We keep feeling that she's not, and Joan Fontaine's character keeps feeling like she's not measuring up to Rebecca in either his eyes or anyone else's. And yet he wanted her for being her at the end of it because he hated Rebecca the whole time. And yet even that hate was a stronger emotion, it felt like, than whatever love he had for Joan Fontaine.
It sounds like a meaty movie
Yeah,
and a
it's
1940s movie,
good. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
good.
Also that.
It's not a casual sit and watch middle of the day second screen content,
There you go. That's
but
that's the buzz phrase. This is not a second screener. You gotta watch Rebecca,
you gotta
folks.
watch.
And
And I
it's
mean,
pretty. It's directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred
There is
Hitchcock,
something on the screen at all times you want to have your eyes on.
2 hours, 10 minutes full of Alfred Hitchcock, Best Picture winning movie before World War II, if we want to just like color for 2 seconds.
Black and white
Now,
color.
speaking of which, there was a remake. I had to Google because I'm like, this
Just
sounds
recently.
so familiar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2020 British remake directed by Ben Wheatley. Um, Lily James, Army Hammer. No one's going to be able to see it, right?
Yeah, Army Hammer. So I think this. I feel like this was at Netflix at some point because the reason Rebecca was on my list at all and I had a knowledge of it was my buddies in the old group chat, my old
Yeah.
roommates. We all wanted to do a book club because we had all just left each other. We'd gone our separate ways after graduation, and we were trying to think of excuses to keep the group chat going. And we wanted to create a book club. And also, I think this was 2020 release, so no one had anything better to do with their time. We were all locked inside. And so we wanted to do a book club where we all read Rebecca and then watched the movie. Because I think this is also on AFI's Top 100. The guy
Yeah.
that was heading this off is my buddy that is most concerned about ticking off every one of those on the true AFI Top 100, not just the 100 thrills that I talked about.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a remake. It's a classic novel. Let's all read it. Let's watch the new movie. Let's have a time. It fell apart as all best plans in the group chat normally go. But in the back of my head, I was like, okay, this Rebecca, it's a thriller, and it was Hitchcock, and I always want to get a Hitchcock in normally in my marathon. And so it was sitting on this long note in my notes app of movies I should watch in October at some point, and
Yeah.
I never get through even half of them in any given October. But this year, also with my wife who read Gone Girl earlier on in the month and then watched that movie with me, Rebecca was a pretty fast read for her, so she read the book prior to us watching the movie together. So she was able to say, oh, it was mostly the same. They changed a couple little things here and there.
Yeah. Which is fun to be able to have, yeah, book side by
Love,
side with movie.
love that.
And probably don't need to see the new one. It came out October 2020 on Netflix. Army Hammer's abuse allegations slash cannibalism claims came out January 2021. So it's no wonder we quickly saw
Got
this
buried.
buried. And it was pretty poorly reviewed, saying it's much worse than the original. Who knows? Maybe for another year, you can go ahead and dip back into this one.
Yeah,
Maybe
yes. I mean, honestly, a despicable. One of the changes that they made from the novel into the movie adaptation when we were in Hays Code era was instead of having this husband, it seems like, and he's painted as we should be kind of scared at him. He's off-putting yet handsome because it's Laurence Olivier.
Yeah.
But then when you get the twist, you get this very long shot of him explaining what happened to the original Rebecca, and in the book, he just straight up murdered her. And we should be afraid of him.
Okay.
In the movie, they soften that and they say, okay, we don't want a movie where a husband murders his wife. And so they were arguing and she slipped and fell. Oh no. And, I didn't mean for it and it was a mistake. And Hitchcock's movie language was still trying to scream at us and tell us that we should be afraid of Laurence Olivier and he's the bad guy. But the words out of their mouths were still like having that cognitive dissonance, and he was pretty justified, and so we were still rooting for him, not only because he's handsome, but also because he kind of really didn't do anything wrong, and Rebecca was cheating on him,
Yeah.
and so in the end, it kind of kneecapped itself. It didn't have the true power that I think the novel had. And so, honestly, if I can think of anyone that can be handsome and pretty despicable and that we should hate by the end of it, Army Hammer might have been a really inspired choice. I don't know if it,
True.
like I said, I haven't seen that one, so I don't know if it worked out, but don't not watch it because of Army Hammer being a scumbag. Maybe watch it because Army Hammer's a scumbag.
Words to live by, and it helps to have a hateable villain. That's a good point.
Yeah. And yeah, at the end of this movie, it's a classic. It's good. I didn't love it because I don't need a really spelled out storyline, but we didn't have a villain. We didn't in this ghost story where we were afraid and we were pulled and tension was going all kinds of ways. It seemed like there should be someone at the root of this, and yet there wasn't. And it also didn't have this big thing to tell us that, like, oh, in real life there are no real villains. It just, they were all a victim of their circumstance. It wasn't saying that either. It just, and then the ending took a little bit too long, which can be an Alfred Hitchcock thing where it doesn't have the
Yeah.
strongest landing point. Anyway, I can tell you 100 reasons why Rebecca should be lauded and does have all those things, and yet in the end, it didn't quite click all the way together for me.
Still enjoyable, not your
Still,
favorite of the month.
yeah.
What did you follow that up with? October 28th.
Creep.
Creep. Okay, the cover for this movie is burned in my mind.
Good.
Horrifying. Okay, talk to us about Creep.
Every October out of 31 days should have a found footage movie, and that's what Creep is. So this is Mark Duplass in this was peak indie Mark Duplass, just making things that cost 12 cents and a bag of chips,
Yep.
where it's found footage, it's two dudes the whole time. Duplass is a creep who hires a videographer for the day, and this hit home to me as just this freelance guy with a video camera say, I'll give you $1,000, you just follow me around for the day with a video camera and we capture some footage because I have cancer and my wife is pregnant and I want my son to see who I was, so this is a day in the life.
Oh.
And he's just an absolute weirdo the entire time, and you're a little off put. And then by the end, oh no, our video guy can't find his keys, and I guess we'll just have to hang out here tonight. And it's just, he seems so dangerous, and we don't know what's happening. And then he finally gets away, and Duplass is still sending him things in the mail, and he knows where he lives, and he's following, and he's just creeping. And, by the end of it, he tells this sob story of, well, I know there's something wrong with me, and I'm so sorry that I've seemed this way. I know that I should be better. And so I thought we had a friendship. I thought, I could really trust you at one point. And so just come meet me one more time in this very public place. It's okay. And so our video guy meets him and sits on a park bench, and, Duplass murders him. And then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, 2014 Duplass is, like you said, cooking with gas and two pennies.
In and out in 77 minutes.
Oh.
And that was your cast. We get
three cast members.
The voice talent of one person over the phone that we do not see. And it is just, that's it.
You're right. Yeah. Katie Azelton, who plays Angela, just the voice. So you've got two people, but still a good found footage movie.
Wikipedia sometimes hits, man. Creep
Okay.
was inspired by Bryce's experience. So Patrick Bryce is the director here and the writer and story and whatever, alongside Duplass. Creep was inspired by Bryce's experience on Craigslist and the movies, listen to this, My Dinner with Andre, Misery, and Fatal Attraction. That is, if he gave that quote to someone on the press tour, he hit it, because this movie is a combination of My Dinner with Andre, Misery, and Fatal Attraction, throwing in the fear that every time you put something out on Craigslist, you are going to be murdered by that stranger that you meet. Every time, your wife or girlfriend wants $5 for this table on Facebook Marketplace and you got to drive out to the middle of nowhere to meet that guy. Yeah, that guy could kill you. That might be Mark Duplass at the end of that. And it was not worth $5, let me tell you.
It just might. All right. Creep, still on Netflix. If you don't trust me on the haunting image, the poster, just working in marketing right now and looking at a bajillion fonts, trying to pick a font for our brand and branding.
There's nothing like this one.
It just is so fantastic. So either way, yeah, 77 minutes. Check it out on Netflix.
And then just last night, I watched Identity.
Identity. Okay.
And talk about a great poster. Just while I'm explaining a little bit of the plot and who's in it, look up the poster of Identity. You got
Yeah,
Ray Liotta, John Cusack, Amanda Peet, our boy Alfred Molina. So this is where he shows up. I did not watch
perfect.
the one scene of Spider-Man 2 that's kind of scary where they're doing the surgery on Doc Ock and his arms
Yeah,
are flailing around, and that's some good horror just thrown into a blockbuster. But anyway, Alfred Molina is in this one. Clea Duvall, Rebecca De Mornay. Identity is this group of 11 actually strangers that end up due to circumstance and bad weather outside in a motel on the side of the road. Feels a little Bates Motel-y, of course. And eventually they start dying one by one, and they have more connecting them than it first seems at first glance, as they just randomly ran into each other. It is loosely based off of Agatha Christie's And Then They Were None. There is one character at some point in the movie that says, "Hey, have you guys seen that movie where a bunch of the strangers go to the island and they start dying one by one?" That's
nice.
the adaptation, and that is what this is on. It's a little heavy-handed. Like, the movie in general is pretty heavy-handed, and the twist hits you over the head like a ton of bricks at the end, but it is fantastic.
Directed by James Mangold. Okay,
Yes. And so
fantastic.
the vibe, the feel of Identity, and especially the time in which it came out in 2003. It's a little bit of like Diet 7 or Primal Fear, or when we were trying to get into elevated thrillers ish, but it still just has the appearance and just general camera work of a normal blockbuster, and
Yeah.
yet it's trying to give you a little bit grummier of a story. But and it's got real kills. This is, it's got blood and guts and horror elements, but it's all in a movie that just feels early 2000s of a thriller, as opposed to that very different vibe of the early 2000s we're remaking every old horror.
I think it's a fantastic cast. Come on, John Cusack, Ray Liotta,
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Molina. Did you rent it or did you stream it on Paramount Plus?
This is, as of last night, it was available on YouTube TV because it was on IFC within the past week
Fun.
or whatever. So it becomes video on demand on YouTube TV. And the cool thing about anything that's ever shown on IFC, as opposed to if you're getting it off of TNT or TBS or maybe USA, they have a big thing at the beginning of the movie that plays just like you were watching it and turned the channel on cable that says, "We do not edit any of our movies for time or content. And so viewer discretion is advised because this is an R-rated movie."
That's really fun. Okay. So catch it on YouTube TV or rent it favorite VOD sites.
For Creep, I went all the way from like beginning to end, told you the entire plot because
Yeah.
the movie's called Creep and Mark Duplass is a creep from like minute one he's on the screen. I can't give away the end of this one. And this is also not like Sixth Sense or anything where everyone and their dog should know the twist here by this point. Identity has flown under the radar enough that you can still come across this and it's good.
Now, let's talk about another movie that we really like that's also set in a Nevada or California motel. Do you think this informs or inspires Bad Times at the El Royale in some ways?
Oh, some similar
Uh,
creative, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And especially the visual language at the beginning where it's raining and we get introduced to a motley crew and how they come together and going in from the different hotel rooms and finding who's in which room. All of that aspect from Bad Times
Yeah.
is here in this one, and it feels a little more uh good, I guess. In Bad Times it feels like it's got a little bit more direction, doing something with the visual language, but in this, keeping track of who's in which room, how our characters, come and meet each other in the lobby, and then keeping track especially of how many there are, because that's I think I came across this from a recommendation from another podcast and knew that it was based on the old and then they were none and then there were none from Agatha
Mhm.
Christie. And so as we're getting introduced to everyone, I'm sitting there with my wife trying to count, okay, how many do we have total? Because they're going to start
Yeah.
getting picked off one by one.
And at a tight 90 minutes, what a great runtime.
Gets you in and out.
What's on tonight's docket?
Okay, so tonight and tomorrow are important because The Substance has been my most looked forward to 2024 release ever since early reviews started flowing in. It is officially available on Mubi as of Halloween Day.
Oh,
Halloween is
okay.
normally the day that I reserve specifically for Psycho. So if I wanted to talk about The Substance with you on a podcast, I was going to have to watch it on the train ride into work early in the morning and pay for the video on demand, like premium video on demand version of it.
Yeah.
Or I could just watch Psycho tonight with my wife and then watch The Substance tomorrow on a Mubi if they do a free trial, or I'll drop whatever $10 it costs to be on Mubi and see what they got. That is my plan, though. I've heard wonderful things about Substance. I didn't get as many 2024 releases in as I wanted. The the gap between theatrical and streaming has gotten a little bit bigger since 2020, where it was very easy to just catch everything. Now they're trying to get you to buy the premium video on demand versions,
Yeah.
and I didn't get off to the theaters with a 1 year old also. So that was, I think, a gap in my marathon this year, and The Substance I hope will make it all worth it.
What have you heard about it thus far? What do you know about the movie before I share anything?
Okay, plot wise, I know that it's dealing with an aging actress who wants the fountain of youth so she can be relevant again in a Hollywood that has discarded her, and that substance that will make her, give her what she wants may have some nefarious side effects alongside it because, Ozempic isn't just the cure all, apparently.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. Yeah, we won't share any more. As far as the cast goes, Demi Moore, fantastic as always. I think it's great they picked an actress who is still really attractive and she's playing someone who's struggling with her looks and feeling old. I'm like, oh, it is real Hollywood. We
Mhm.
have Margaret Qualley and we have Dennis Quaid. He played Reagan this year and he's also in this movie. So two horror movies in 1 year. That's pretty great. Anyways, between seeing some images and then every friend I have has talked about this movie, I'm excited to hear later over the phone what you think about it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it won, yeah, Cannes Best Screenplay this year, San Sebastian's official selection, TIFF, it won People's Choice, Midnight Madness Award, Edinburgh International was official selection. So,
It's also longer than I think I expected. Again, I was trying to make it work so that I could talk about it this morning since it's my movie for today or whenever I was going to see it. It's a solid 2:10, 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think, whenever
yeah.
I checked in. So I got to sit down and give this one the attention that it deserves whenever I watch it.
Yeah, interested to hear what you have to think. If anyone wants to see this movie, it is still in theaters most places, or like you said, I'll have to link to Mubi where you could watch it there. And
Have
just
you,
a
do
okay,
you know anything else that's on Mubi? Has Mubi done, this is their first foray into
yeah.
buying a little syndicated version of a movie, whatever they do.
I've like seen stuff on Philo or Screambox or whatever else, and I was like,
Fubi is
Mubi,
definitely a thing. Tubi is definitely a thing. Now, it's Mubi, right? Not movie.
Mubi, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mubi.
I got some awards. Now that Halloween is here, October is almost completed. What 2024 meant to me. This was the year that I watched Seven Aliens. So
Yeah,
best of the aliens. It's got to be Alien 1. That's not a hot take. It's just the facts. Best new movie, the best new to me at least, that I had never seen before. Either Identity that we talked about today or Practical Magic, which I talked up so well that you
yep.
went and watched it.
And I really liked it.
Good.
There were some weird middling plot points here or there, like the
Oh,
very first hour.
the story's what are we doing with the timeline of this movie? Now you get it.
The soundtrack, though, it was like a jukebox of
It's
bangers.
it's a rom-com
Yeah.
for October with witches. So
And
good.
and even with the special effects being quite dated, they were fun. And it wasn't like bad, bad. We're not talking
Yeah.
about like cardboard dinosaurs and a green screen. This was still good and fun to watch.
Let's talk about cardboard dinosaurs and a green screen. I'll skip ahead to my best scary scene. It was Godzilla showing up, though, in
Yeah.
Godzilla -1. We've elevated a little bit since the original days of that green monster.
Oh, yeah. Now, wait, which showing up? Him on the island or him in the
Yeah, in
city?
that first scene on
Yeah.
the island, we first get our glimpse of Godzilla.
Yeah, it was the most personal kills I think I've ever seen in a Godzilla
Mm.
movie.
Best new movie of for 2024, Romulus. It was part of my
Yeah.
Alien marathon, and it's what inspired me to go through the rest of them. And Romulus lived up. There is not enough hype around this getting back to our roots, and especially coming off of two Ridley Scott, a true two-parter that was
Mhm.
not giving fans, I think, what they wanted. We go in a
Yeah.
different direction. And since watching this, I've read more about how there's potential for the director of this one to team up with the director of the newest Predator, Prey,
Yeah.
and we get a new version of Alien versus Predator that might be good. The AVP movies are the ones that I did not watch as part of this marathon, but if Prey, who I love, is going to meet Alien Romulus, which I love, that's got me interested enough.
Well, yeah, that director, Dan Trachtenberg, uh, first off, I love that he's on Twitter and X and being cheeky.
Yeah.
He secretly wrote a second Predator movie, sorry, a third. So it had already been announced that he had a sequel coming 2025,
Mm-hmm.
26. And then like last month or this month, they were like, by the way, he actually wrote
Another
and is
one.
beginning to shoot another one. And you're like, wait a second. So, anyways, I'm excited. Yeah, if that AVP comes out, I'll be really juiced because the first one was so campy. It was fun, but it was total
Mm-hmm.
camp. The second one I didn't even watch because it was horrible from what everyone had said.
So now, whenever I get on Hulu, because I watched six other Alien movies that were all on Hulu, it
Yeah.
expects me to watch Alien versus Predator Requiem
Yep.
next and I would just keep ignoring that suggestion until it figures out that I'm watching other things. And finally, the award for just the best all time movie. It's normally one that I've seen before. It's usually Psycho because Psycho's in this list, but
Yeah.
also shout outs to Cabin in the Woods, which I came back to. It used to be that there were two movies that I would watch every single year, and it was Cabin in
Mhm.
the Woods and Psycho. I skipped a few, and coming back to Cabin in the Woods, it still hits. And The Sixth Sense, also being able to watch that, the
Yeah.
experience of sitting on my couch, watching that in 2024 with someone that didn't know the ending was something that I will remember from October of 2024 forever.
A memorable month with surprises and fun and kills and horror and laughs. For anyone wanting to watch a horror movie tonight or tomorrow or even later, keep the party going. Look at our show notes. I've got links to all the movies that Cole has given here.
Or on Instagram, you threw it in the stories as well, the
Threw
calendar
in the
for every
stories.
day. 31 great movies. Can't,
31 great movies.
yeah, I mean, what was the worst movie I saw this time? I don't know, Alien 4, I guess, but
Yeah.
watching it as part of the rest of the aliens, it still worked and fit in. All
Yeah.
bangers.
Bunch of bangers. For those who are maybe like me a few years ago who refused to watch anything horror or thriller, there is hope. Let Cole be your emissary.
I'll
It's,
watch Hotel Transylvania with you or Monster Squad or anything like that too. I love it.
they're all
Abbott and
good.
Costello meet Frankenstein. Let's fire it up.
From Universal Monster movies to The Substance, we've got a good list here. Give them a watch, enjoy. Thank you again, Cole, for coming on and sharing your horror wisdom with everybody. And happy Halloween to all.
Ooh.
Before we go, make sure you check out the show notes on your favorite podcast platform for links to the movies that Cole mentioned today, as well as links to all of the previous articles Cole has written with us covering his 31 Days of Halloween. Until next time, we hope you watch good, scary movies and TV.